to the Nurse Dad Podcast.
Hello, folks. I'm RN Glenn, a.k.a. Nurse Dad, former Navy hospital corpsman, current ER nurse, and host of the Nurse Dad Podcast, available on both YouTube and Spotify. Go to mynursedad.com and hit subscribe. It'll subscribe you to my YouTube. This is a solo episode, no guest. I just have some things to say, some news to report. News on me, actually, an update in my career, second gig that I took on in the nurse hospitality space. But I want to add to that because I don't think it's simply nurse hospitality or luxury. I'd actually connect it to preventive healthcare, which is a new term coming about. I'm going to talk about some essential micronutrients, aka vitamins, like the amino complex, taurine. I'm holding this up to the camera for those who are just listening. L-carnitine, you see that? I feel more like a nurse in this new role than I do as an ER nurse, which is crazy and requires an explanation, and I will give it to you after my first segment. I want to talk about an article from 2022 from the Stanford Medicine News Center. It was a study conducted on 35 mass shooters in the United States between 1982 and 2019. And for those watching, you can see me referring to my notes a lot in this episode, because even though I have most of it committed to memory, there's just something about doing a long-form podcast that turns your brain into scrambled eggs. This is a study, again, reported by Stanford Medicine News Center in 2022. A study by Dr. Ira Glick, who is a psychiatric professor of Stanford Medicine, and Dr. Nina Cerfolio, who is a New York psychiatrist. They reviewed 35 mass shooters between 1982 and 2019. They reviewed the data. They reviewed recorded interviews. Most of the time, the mass shooters, they don't survive their encounter with the police. And I'm not saying I disagree with that one bit, but they're not available a lot of times to interview later in life. So you have to use the evidence available, whatever information and data is available to you years later. Of the 35 mass shooters, they diagnosed 32 with at least one psychiatric disorder, 18 with schizoaffective disorder, schizophrenia. Other diagnoses included bipolar 1, delusional disorder, personality disorder, which I'm going to make a separate video just on personality disorders. Those are disorders you can acquire. Substance abuse disorder and PTSD. 32 out of 35 shooters, they diagnosed with at least one mental health disorder. Worth noting that prior to Dr. Glick and Dr. Cerfolio, they were undiagnosed. I found this to be profound in many ways. First, I wonder if there is less talk about schizoaffective disorder, bipolar, personality disorder, PTSD, etc., in relation to mass shooters, maybe a fear out of stigmatizing people who suffer from those disorders. No one credible is saying that if you have schizoaffective disorder, you're going to be a mass shooter. When I see an article like this, I say to myself, there is a huge psychiatric component, undiagnosed component to mass shooters. Because we put a lot of the responsibility on the parents, as we should. This doesn't take away from the gun debate. This doesn't take away from the fact that no child should have easy access to their parents' firearms. But it does introduce this element that we are really failing in psychiatric medicine. And not just psychiatric medicine, these children were Americans. Every child, every adolescent sees their pediatrician at least once or twice a year. And though, to be fair, something like schizoaffective disorder and things like that don't really appear until late teens. In fact, I think 17 is the magic number. There are signs and symptoms, nevertheless. But are they presenting when they're in front of their pediatrician? That's the question. For example, antisocial disorder. When you're under 18, it's called conduct disorder. And conduct disorder is characterized by deceitfulness, theft, aggressive behavior toward others, and it overlaps with ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, depression, anxiety. We know misdiagnosis is a huge reason for dead Americans. That's just a fact. I wonder how many adolescents, children, etc., are diagnosed with ADHD, or the pediatrician or whomever is focusing on depression or, I don't know, autism. And the real culprit, the real focus should be conduct disorder. And this person eventually becomes an adult or a late teen, and that risk of extreme rage becomes a real thing. And there's probably other things overlapping. They could also have ADHD, could also be depressed, could also have anxiety. I'm not taking away from that, but it makes me wonder, should children and adolescents go through a mandatory psychiatric evaluation annually? They have to see their doctors, right? They have to get their shots and their checkups in order to go to school. I wonder if there should be a psychiatric evaluation for everybody, once a year, somebody who that's their specialty. And also that should continue. I think if a child is on, say, the parents' health insurance till 26 years old, I think an annual checkup and also an annual psychiatric checkup should be mandatory. And it's not just to pick up on a mental health disorder. It's also to just check in on their overall mental health, because we live in very trying times. I often go back to the poem The Hollow Men, or Humphrey Bogart's first movie called The Petrified Forest, which is based on a play, or anything that Nietzsche has ever written about how as humanity becomes more dependent on technology, we're going to become more, and I'm borrowing an old term, neurotic. I could tell you about myself. I also face that tunnel ahead where, as a nurse, they're saying AI is going to be taken over and the jobs aren't going to be as available. They're not going to be as high paying. Just the anxiety of that alone, that AI may take over my job. Aside from the fact that where I live, what $90,000 used to be in 1990 is now $235,000 in terms of yearly salary. And just everything in our life now, social media, the algorithm, the way we're just so fractious as a society, even within ourselves, so many different layers, different parts being pulled every which way. When you read Carl Jung, he talks about how you exist on just two planes, where you're a citizen of the country that you live in, and you're also a member of your family, and how they are very different. And that's a duplicitous way to live, and it's a way that we all live. But I don't think duplicitous is the right word. That indicates two streets. I think it's like we're a multi-lane superhighway, like one of those 15-lane highways that you see in China. And it really takes a toll on you mentally. One of the figures they taught us in nursing school was that at some point, 70% of the population is going to go through some kind of anxiety thing. I'll just leave it at that. I think that all children and adolescents to the age of 26, if they're on their parents' insurance, in order to maintain it, in order to really get them in there as an incentive, hey, you want to be on my health insurance? You need to see their doctor every year and also get a real psych evaluation. Because if we're not misdiagnosing people, we're not diagnosing them, period. And when you read that 32 out of the 35 mass shooters that they reviewed between 1982, I think it is, and 2019, that 32 out of 35 were diagnosed with at least one mental health disorder, I think that warrants a change in our approach. Doctors are more busy than ever. You'll see physicians not even see patients the last 45 minutes of their shift just so they can get things done. And I'm being nice when I say 45 minutes. I've had physicians on this podcast who have told me that they barely have enough time to get to know their patients, let alone make a diagnosis and come up with a treatment plan and follow up on that treatment plan. I don't think it should be solely the responsibility of a pediatrician to make such a judgment call based on what they see in that visit. I think every child, and to age 26 as an adult, if you're on your parents' insurance, need a annual psychiatric evaluation. That is my opinion. I'm going to stick to it. If you like conversations like this, please hit that subscribe button. Again, go to mynursedad.com, hit subscribe. If you fill out the pop-up, you will have access to my 35-page free guide. Let me get a drink real quick. This is a Yeti. They're not sponsoring me, but Yeti, please sponsor me. I'm using your product here. But if you fill out the pop-up, you get my 35-page free guide. I have a few gems in it, one of them being, if you're a student, any kind of student, one of the things I saw in school was that in order to get that GPA, I was cum laude. I'm pretty proud of my 3.5, but I understand people try to get a higher GPA or just try to pass. It was hard to watch younger people give up their hobbies and commit solely to their grades. It's important to get good grades, but you're giving up on your life. You're giving up on that balance. We were just talking about mental health. It's not very healthy to give up on the gym and your drawing or your bike riding or whatever it is that you love to do, your music, because of school. You can do both. And I developed a technique. Part of it was from my military training. Part of it was simply being a 30-something-year-old guy in nursing school. And I developed a technique that allowed me to keep my hobbies and get my 3.5 GPA. And it's in that 35-page free guide. If you don't need it, I'm sure you know somebody who does. There's also a chapter specifically for nurses, a technique called majors and minors. It's basically multitasking tips. And there's something else for everybody in there, something about life that I think is holding a lot of people back, something that treating Marines taught me, and I put it in that free guide. There's also a template there for nurses when you're on the floor and you're taking a report that helps organize, your care. You can download the template and print it out and have fun with it. And if you get that 35-page free guide, you're also enrolled in my newsletter. It's new. In fact, I haven't sent anything out in 3 weeks because I haven't made a podcast episode in over 2 weeks. Join the newsletter so we can contact each other aside from social media. I won't spam you. I won't over-email you. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that first segment from the Stanford Medicine News Center. I just thought it was fascinating. We're failing children if we're not diagnosing them correctly and if we're not treating them correctly. On that note, one of the things I see more and more in the ER, because I am an ER nurse, primarily an ER nurse, is that I'll see a 22-year-old, I had to put in an IV. Maybe they're a little bit more nervous than I would expect. Maybe they're in tears. Maybe they demand that their father or mother is right beside them. And then you learn that they're still on this regimen of antipsychotic drugs. And I'm not condemning antipsychotic drugs, but they were placed on these drugs at age 14. Now, there are children, of course, they're impoverished. They have PTSD. They have genuine anxiety issues or mental health issues that we're just talking about that do need drugs. But it seems like more and more a reason for these medications is simply high school is stressful. But the reason for them being on these drugs is not why I'm bringing this up. The reason is for the fact that they're still on them at age 18, at age 20, at age 24. You're giving a medicine for anxiety to a 14-year-old because they're entering high school. But it seems like there's no follow-up. Because I'll talk to them and I'll say, do you see your doctor? It's just constant refills. And I understand that some people may need these drugs to deal with their anxiety, but I'm seeing more and more a codependence on these drugs. Are they getting a genuine psychiatric evaluation? I just think, like I said, I think a genuine psychiatric evaluation, an annual evaluation for all children, adolescents, young adults, whatever, would also ensure that there are follow-ups, because it seems like it's a blank check sometimes for these medications. But that's my 2 cents. That's my experience on it. Somebody tried to shut me down not too long ago on TikTok. I have TikTok on right now, by calling my comments like anecdotal. And Yeah, to a degree, it's my opinion, but you can't write off experience. You can't do that. That's where wisdom comes from, right? You can't sit there and be so statistical. And I'm not saying the stats are important, but they don't explain the nuances. They don't account for instinct. And let me tell you, as a nurse, my medical instinct is really important. I wanted to make another comment about this general anxiety I think we all feel. There's like an underlying anxiety. There's certainly an underlying angst. I theorize that many people in modern society have intestinal lining in their stomachs that is just crying out loud, please stop, because the things out there that can give you an ulcer, a stomach ulcer, it's incredible. And it really hit home with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Not asking for opinions, to each their own. But I was stunned by just how many people, not only publicly, but on the internet, where it's out there forever, not just adolescents, but school teachers, physicians, can so openly cheer the assassination of a human being. And I was watching the Joe Rogan podcast where he was having a discussion, I think with a guy named Schultz, can't remember the name. And they were saying that everyone exists in their own reality, which is true. For some people, he was every hateful thing under the sun, saying every hateful thing under the sun. And for other people, he was a peaceful Christian. This is not a comment on who Charlie Kirk was, but certainly it's not because people are evil. Most people, when they're cheering the death of a human being, they generally believe whatever they're seeing in their silos to feel that way and to so confidently, as if there aren't consequences for such behavior, or as if such behavior wasn't such a poor example, to go out there and cheer it. 20 years ago, you would not get that. That would not happen. It just would not happen. Just like how I feel if 9/11 happened today, across college campuses, you would probably have a lot of people championing Osama bin Laden. That never used to happen. And I attribute that to social media, the negative side of social media. I attribute that to technology. That is exactly what the writer of The Petrified Forest, or what T.S. Eliot's poem, The Hollow Man, what they were warning us of. It's here. And Charlie Kirk's assassination made it abundantly clear. Like in your face, slam dunk. We're living in those times. And as a father, just add another layer of anxiety, trying to raise children and all that. Good luck. So yeah, I do think that there is cause for concern and good reason that we add a mandatory psychiatric evaluation to children, that we put a little less stress on the actual pediatrician, and we put the responsibility on a specialist, because the amount of mass shootings that we have, the fact that so many of those mass shooters are undiagnosed with a mental health disorder, and the fact that we all have that angst in us, all of us are fighting the machine in our own way. I think it warrants it. So I'll end it there. I'll end it there. I want to talk about an exciting new turn in my own career, which is really adding to my education of essential micronutrients, aka vitamins, aka, as long as they're being applied therapeutically, nutraceuticals. We have pharmaceuticals, and we know that word very well, but we don't often talk about nutraceuticals. Nutraceutical is a nutrient that exists primarily in food that has health benefits. But when a vitamin, which is an essential micronutrient, is used in a therapeutic way, like I just said, it also becomes a nutraceutical. And I'm learning from this new gig of mine, which I'll get into in a minute, just how I'm attaching to vitamins even more importance than I already did previously. And I'm a gym guy. I'm a former athlete. I thought I knew all about vitamins. I thought I knew more about nutrition than your average physician, which I think I do. But I'm really learning the health benefits of vitamins from my new job. So what do? I'm pleased to announce that I'm working for a company that specializes more of the hospitality space, luxury space. And I use the word luxury loosely because, for example, I wish I had a 27-foot Ranger tug boat, which is like a cruiser, but it flies. But that boat's over $150,000. I think maybe even $200,000. Way outside my price range. That is a luxury. What I'm doing, yes, could cost you $1,000 per session, but it also can cost you a lot less. We're talking about fluid hydration, vitamin infusion, receiving certain medications if you have migraines, like Toradol, things of that nature. Yes, it can go as high as 1,000 or more, but it also could be quite reasonable. So I use the term luxury a little loose on that one. I feel more like a nurse doing this. I haven't done it yet. I had my orientation yesterday. I have all my supplies now. I love that I'm on the road, so to speak. I feel like a Navy hospital corpsman again. Like I'm out there with Marine infantry. I'm on my feet. I'm moving around. It's just me. I'm educating. I'm getting to know people. I love that. But I really feel like I'm a part of something special. And I have to say, we often don't talk about Gen Zers and millennials in a positive light. News alert, I'm a millennial. I was born in 1981. According to the chart, 1981, sometimes 80, but 81 definitely is the first year of the millennials. I'm 44. For those who think about young, obnoxious young people and they're the millennials, no. Millennials are middle-aged now. They're working professionals. But the Gen Zers and millennials, which probably have more agreements between those two generations than, say, millennials and Gen Xers, they're pushing this new post-COVID world of medicine called, not preventive medicine, called preventive healthcare. People don't want to wait until they're sick to start a medication. Now, in the ER, I've met a lot of people who are totally fine with letting their blood pressure get out of control and their cholesterol, who have found peace with the fact that they'll just simply take a pill when the time comes, when it's required. I'm not that type of a person, and a lot of young people, more and more, they don't subscribe to that. But in 1 year alone, there's a 30% increase among Gen Zers in terms of focusing on preventive healthcare, if you want to say preventive medicine. It is a $2 trillion a year industry. It's increasing 6.5% annually. And that was the thing. That was what I was searching for. I'm sitting there in orientation. I'm learning all about this. I'm excited. It's going to be a fantastic respite for me as an ER nurse to be away from the bedside a little bit more. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, this doesn't feel in my heart like luxury hospitality. Sure, it's a part of it, right? It's a part of it. But it feels like something more. And that's what it is, though. That's the term I was looking for, preventive healthcare. So thank you, Gen Zers. Thank you, fellow millennials, middle-aged people like myself. Thanks for that. It's amazing how language shapes the mind and allows thoughts to come. I remember in college, I learned that, I don't think it was until the late 70s that the term sexual assault was used legally. So before that, if a woman went to the police and was like, I was sexually assaulted, I guess they wouldn't use that term. Probably people weren't using that term. But pretty much the attitude would be like, did they rape you? Maybe somebody put their hand somewhere, but there was no legal term for that. We know what rape is. What are you talking about? Sorry, how do we charge that? He didn't rape you. What can we do? And when you have something like sexual assault come now into play legally, it opens the door for a lot more classifications and categories of evil misconduct between human beings. And so when I heard preventive health care, same way I got more involved in understanding how taxes work and money in general, because I always said, oh, I don't understand taxes, or I'm not a finance guy. And then I was reading a book and they said two words I couldn't abide: financial illiteracy. I'm an avid reader, and that word illiteracy, financial illiteracy, I couldn't tolerate it. And I just started reading everything I could. And now I have a fair understanding of how taxes work between people who make salary, people who have portfolio income, people who own a business. I get it. I get it. It's amazing, though. I'm sitting there, I'm restless. I can't articulate what I'm feeling, except that I know we're doing more than just luxury and hospitality. And then I read about preventive health care. That's why you got to read. That's why you got to be curious out there. So what am I doing? Okay, let me talk about a few things. And again, I'm sorry, I'm referring to my notes because, as I said before, my mind becomes scrambled eggs when I'm doing a long form podcast. But let's talk about, did I bring that? Oh, let's see. Did I bring that? I didn't bring it. Okay. I didn't bring it. I brought a few things. Glutathione. Glutathione. You're getting an infusion. We're going to add glutathione. Now, I understand that it protects the liver cells and aids in liver detox. Okay. But here's what I didn't know. I guess I didn't put it together with glutathione. It fights the effects of free radicals. So for those of us, even myself, I try to eat as healthily as I can. I try to eat as much as I can organically. I'm not made of money. It gets pricey. I learn to find deals. I'm certainly more strict when it comes to what my children eat. Although I do let them, they eat their M&Ms and everything like that too. I'm not one of those parents. But glutathione, if you get an IV, again, this is IV infusion. This is the greatest form of bioavailability that you can get. Glutathione fights the effects of free radicals. So it flushes out those toxins that you get from the poison in processed foods. Let's talk about taurine. I'm going to show you a bottle. This is taurine. This is for TikTok there. All right, so I don't know if you can see it. This is for my podcast. Does it zoom in? Is it going to zoom in? No? Okay. Taurine. Let's talk about taurine. Supports the brain, the cardiovascular system, and muscle. Okay, great. But it also improves cognitive function. It regulates electrolytes, combats oxidative stress, and fights inflammation. NAD. This is a big one. I think it's on some show, Kylie Jenner had said like she wanted an NAD boost and made people pay attention. And it's something that I've recently been paying more attention to. NAD is found in every cell, and it's vital for producing energy and keeping your cells healthy. Think of it as an electron carrier. NAD is one of the most essential molecules in your body. It is a coenzyme. And I'm not saying this to sell my services. I'm just trying to share with you what I've been learning. But one thing I didn't know, it slows your aging. It slows the aging process. And it supports DNA repair. And this is something I learned later in life. I didn't know that your DNA can get damaged. Yes, your DNA can get damaged. And NAD supports DNA repair. Think of it as an electron carrier. It's the power lines. It's the power lines of the body. Very important. Very important. We have now L-carnitine. L-carnitine. I had to buy 2 of these, they said, because it's very popular. It's not an amino acid, but it behaves like one. And again, I'm sorry if I have to refer to my notes. I'm still learning it. Something about doing the podcast, you have so many things that you have to focus on. Sometimes the information is the first thing we go. I'm not going to get into everything that it does, but what's interesting about it is that it crosses the blood-brain barrier. It crosses the blood-brain barrier to support the mitochondrial energy production in neurons. Some human trials suggest that it improves memory, mood, and cognitive performance in mild cognitive impairments and early Alzheimer's disease. So it can actually be something that fights Alzheimer's disease and dementia, which is incredible. I'm not going to get into detail about Alzheimer's disease, but a lot of the protein waste products, it interferes with the communication between the neurons and things like that. But so this supports those neurons. For those of us who are thinking more in short term, it combats memory fatigue. It'll combat brain fatigue. I think we're all feeling that, especially anyone with kids on a daily basis. Or they're feeling the brain fatigue. Another thing about the L-carnitine, it also improves male fertility. I don't know, guys. They say we're becoming less fertile, probably because of technology and radiation in our cell phones and everything else, what we're eating, which does go back to what I was saying before about glutathione, which removes the free radicals, but also muscle damage. It repairs that, fat metabolism. It's exciting for me. There's a lot more vitamins out there that I'm able to offer, and pain meds and things like that. I'm going to make short videos that are very sleek, well put together, talking about each one of these and more. And I'm also going to make a video on how you can find these essential micronutrients in foods and which foods to eat. Now, you're not going to get the same bioavailability by consuming a food product as you would with IV infusion. So in the near future, next week or so, I'm going to make individual episodes highlighting each micronutrient and what they do. I have a lot more than this. I think it's going to be fun. And I'm also going to talk about what foods you can consume to get these vitamins. But I will say that you're not going to have the same bioavailability. But you should take vitamins, eat the right foods. It does work. And if you can, get an IV infusion. If you're in the New York area, contact me. I do that now. And I would love to come to you and give you an infusion. I'm also going to host events. I'll set that up and subscribe to my Instagram if you have it. That's nurse.dad. If you go to mynursedad.com, hit subscribe. It subscribes you to my YouTube. But there's also, if you scroll down on the page, you'll enter my Instagram. And if you hit subscribe, boom, there you go. Now, before I end this podcast, I want to talk about two things that I created years ago, that are on Amazon that I'm proud of. First is a book I wrote and illustrated. Isabel Learns to Share. My daughter's not taking very good care of her book. Isabel Learns to Share. I wrote it in a world of AI. I wrote this book 100%. It's all me. And I'm a bit of an artist. I didn't draw these images, but I did create them. I used Canva. I'll admit that. I used Canva. But I put a lot of heart into it. And I tried to make these pictures something that didn't look like it was just copy and paste and two-dimensional. Add some depth to it. I don't know if you can tell. The shadow. Like I said, I used to be an artist. My artist brain just clicked. And so this is Isabel Learns to Share. I think it's self-explanatory. It's a love letter from me to my firstborn daughter. And I think it's a wonderful book. My wife, I know she's my wife and my biggest fan, but she says to me, Glenn, you really need to market this book. It's a great, endearing book. And then my second book, which only exists on the Kindle, it's $5.99, something like that, is Zach's Dad is Deployed. And it's not just about the character Zach. It's about children of all different backgrounds whose parents in some way is going to deploy or is deployed. And it's a great book, especially for military children. But it's also great to just read it to your children, even if you're not in the military, just so they're aware that there are children out there whose parent for 7 months or a year and a half, they have to go, and why they should be appreciative of you and why you're able to stick around. Those are my two books, Isabel Learns to Share and Zach's Dad is Deployed. You can find them on Amazon or go to mynursedad.com, hit the store icon, and you'll get a link to Amazon from there. I would really appreciate that. Would help the channel out. I am a one-man show. I don't have a team. You don't know what you're getting out there half the time when you're purchasing things for your children. These are wholesome American books promoting family values. Again, Isabel Learns to Share and Zach's Dad is Deployed. This one is only as an ebook. This one is a physical book that you can purchase. I'm very proud of them. And please, go to mynursedad.com, hit subscribe. Again, if you fill out the pop-up, you get the 35-page free guide. You also enroll in my newsletter. And if you hit the subscribe, you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I try to promote YouTube. I'm on Spotify and YouTube, but my YouTube has everything. It has a lot of content. I'm on TikTok. I'm on TikTok live right now at nurse.dad0. I do a lot of lives there. And I love the live. I love doing that. For over a year, I treated TikTok like a stepchild. I just thought it was an Instagram part two. I'm like, I already have Instagram, but I realized that TikTok is its own universe. And people do engage you a lot more on TikTok, so I have to say. But I'm not discounting my Instagram. That's at nurse.dad. Please follow that. Again, if you scroll down on my page at www.mynursedad.com, you enter my Instagram, please hit subscribe. That's almost like my stream of conscious Instagram, because I'll put some more random pictures like at the gym, or I was at orientation yesterday. We were doing IV infusions, and so I have some photographs doing that. And so it's a more real-time experience with me, between me and you. My name is Glenn, Nurse Glenn. I am an ER nurse by trade. I am the host of the Nurse Dad podcast. I'm excited for this Netflix documentary called, I think it's called Marines, and it's going to come out November 10th on the Marine Corps birthday. It looks like they follow the deployment on what we call a MU, a Marine Expeditionary Unit. Basically, 3 ships, the biggest one being an LHD, which is the sort of ship I was on, the USS Boxer. It's like the second biggest ship in the Navy. It looks like a carrier, but it's smaller. And the back opens up. It drops into the water. The back opens up. It's basically to conduct an invasion. And it seems that's how they focus on the Marines, which I think they should, because it's an amphibious force. And it's been characterized for too long as just some Marine patrolling around in the desert, where really they're part of the Navy and they are an amphibious fighting force. And I like that they're getting down to the reorganization that occurred in 1936 and is the Marine Corps that we know and love and cherish today. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. It's bringing back a lot of memories. That's going to be cool. That's going to be cool to watch. I might do a video where I share the screen and I comment on the trailer. I think the trailer could be a little better though, Netflix. I think the trailer could be a little bit more oomph to it. But it was a good trailer. I'm not saying it wasn't. Anywho, I'm RN Glenn, a.k.a. Nurse Dad. Thank you for sharing your time with me. If you liked what you heard, please hit subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard or what you saw, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you anyway, though. Maybe better luck next time. And until next time, stay hungry, be humble. Nurse Dad out.